great team. We've got a great mission. Massive shout out to the London Techstars team. Like, they are incredible. They take you through it and make you realize where your strengths are. The team here is phenomenal.
This is a conversation with Ciaran Megoran. Ciaran is the CEO and co-founder of MedTribe, where they're looking to build a specialized network for healthcare professionals. Ciaran is a doctor by trade, but he's turned founder and he's looking to create what he calls the LinkedIn for doctors. Stay tuned in this episode as Ciaran talks about his experience in the Techstars London Accelerator, what it's like working with his brother as a co-founder, and how he's looking to change the healthcare system. Ciaran, great to have you here. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Dylan.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right into it. So you are a medical doctor by training, yeah?
Yeah, I am. So I've done my training in the UK and I specialized in emergency medicine and did my rotations in things like intensive care and stuff like that as well.
Wow, emergency medicine, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, it has its moments, but it's a phenomenal place to work, to be able to see the sort of cold face of humanity, I guess, you know, where people are coming in and out at their worst day of their life usually, or one of them, but it's just your normal day, and it's amazing to be able to have that impact on people. So yeah, it's a great place to be. Tough, but great.
Tough, yeah, I'm sure. So what led you down the path to choosing to pursue medicine in the first place?
Naivety as a young person. No, I mean, you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be able to try and do things that made an impact and sort of had an impact on people predominantly. I've always loved interacting with and being around other people. And healthcare felt like a really great way to use the stuff that I like doing at school to then progress into a career. Yeah, I think that's normally it, just impact. It's great to
anyone guide you in a different direction where they're like, no, don't do medicine. It's too intense. It's too hard. It's too much work. You're going to be slaving your life away for so long, because that is in the US, at least, there's a huge deterrent. There's a huge barrier to entry. Obviously, you know, you have 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, however many years of residency, potentially, you know, more studying after that if you need to get a PhD or some other degree. Anything that was like deterring you at that point?
No, I mean, I was lucky in some sectors to be going in that direction. So my family, the only one that's a doctor, including my extended family and stuff like that. My mum and dad were working in a fish and chip shop, which I don't think you could get more British in that sense. But yeah, they were working there. So they were just, you know, go and do something with an impact, and, you know, that makes us proud and stuff like that. So that was really great motivator. The people that were discouraging me were probably doctors that I then bumped into along the way, sort of waving the flag about how much work it is. But I never saw it as sort of discouraging. It's more like, you know, and I say the same thing to people that I meet now. It's not to discourage you. It's just, you know, you've got to go in with your eyes really open. This is a hard life to live, but incredibly rewarding. So I never lost that sense of, hey, you can make an impact and reward. Ultimately, that was my motivator. So that can be honest in that and on the path.
But ultimately, that wasn't going to be the long run path for you, as clearly you've decided to redirect yourself in a career trajectory and gone for entrepreneurship. You wanted to become a founder. So what sparked that?
So when you're working as a doctor, you'll make an impact one-on-one. You know, I see a patient, I impact them, I can impact their family, and that's an incredible experience. But the more you work within systems, it really makes you realize that actually to be able to make an impact you truly want, that you want to change things at a fundamental level, I honestly think entrepreneurship is the way to go when it comes to that. You can try and get involved, and I did, you know, within the sort of, you know, talking to the right people, going to the managerial element of it, stuff like that. And it makes an impact. But I still was a little bit unfulfilled when it came to, hey, I think there's something here to change. I love the space, that the industry, and it's very real in the sense of the impact it has on people. But it's got a lot of problems. And I felt that entrepreneurship is the way to go to be able to change those things. I understand the space. I think I've got a unique in terms of being a doctor insight, and now being able to combine that alongside all the help you get being an entrepreneur and the learning that you go through. I think that makes a great combination for me, at least personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That impact driven, that passion mindset is something that drives a lot of entrepreneurs. And I think a lack of fulfillment as well is something that's really common amongst people who go on to start their own business. Is they're doing something and they feel like they can be doing more, and they're seeing these little problems within the industry or the fields that they're working in, and they say, yeah, I think I can do something about this. So that's awesome. I'm really happy that you pursued that. It makes me proud. I think it makes the Techstars network proud. One thing I want to bring up is, in one of our previous conversations, you mentioned healthcare, the medicine field, it's a bit broken. So can you explain in a little bit more detail what you personally think is broken about the system? And then that can sort of carry into what's the solution that you're trying to build right now?
Big question. Lots of things to be able to go through.
No, you don't like big questions?
No, I love big questions, but I as in just thinking it through, it's how many different things are broken within healthcare. I think that, the patient healthcare relationship was sort of fundamentally affected by things like COVID. That's a once in a generation event, and it changes that relationship with people. People started taking, as patients and people, much more ownership of their health, which I think is phenomenal. And healthcare has to step up to that plate and enable them to do so. Sort of really get down to the personalized aspect of it. Within my background as well, I've also done sort of a global health degree as well. And looking at that, from a global health point of view, it's a huge lot of disparity and problems within the world in terms of how healthcare opportunities and knowledge is shared. And that's really what we focus down on in MedTribe, is looking at how knowledge, communities, and sort of career opportunities really present themselves to the wider world. It's not even close to being equal. It's not even close to being in the sort of structure to be able to address even regionally, let alone internationally. But that's sort of, we're going for that on the whole scale. That's our mission. And that's the big problem that we're trying to solve, is sort of how do you stop the fragmentation and the siloing, the breakdown of the community element of healthcare, of knowledge within health, and sharing of knowledge, sharing of career opportunities, all of that, which is focusing down on. But the list of problems within healthcare, that's a long chat.
Yeah. So let's dig a little deeper into MedTribe, into the solution that you're building. Give us the overview. Just tell us about MedTribe and what you're doing.
So we're building a professional network for healthcare, and we're helping to connect healthcare professionals, so physicians, nurses, allied professionals, everyone in that space, to connect with their peers through simple things: education, community, career, and the opportunities that come with it. And that's what we're focusing down on. We feel like I feel, and when we speak to all of our users at the moment, they really feel that that's where they're being neglected. Everyone will focus on the latest biomedical advance or, treatment advance, and that's super important. But you've got people to be able to deliver that stuff, and the attrition rates within healthcare are profound because we're not taking care of those people. And I think that giving them a space to be able to behave as a community and to be able to learn, we all love doing it. It's like one of the big reasons why we get into healthcare. We love learning and we love progressing ourselves and our knowledge. And then ultimately giving ourselves the ability to reflect that within sort of our career and how we present to the world and how we can progress ourselves. We've got to have that agency as individuals. And for a while that's been eroded as such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for our audience who hasn't been there for mine and Ciaran's previous conversations, he refers to it as the LinkedIn of healthcare, which I think is a great analogy because as you just pointed out, like, it's an industry that the way that you go about things is very different. You go about like meeting people and, learning and getting a new job within the healthcare system. You go about it very differently than you may a corporate job. So I think it's really cool that you're building a solution for that, and you're building a network and a community for these people who literally invest their lives, their blood, sweat, and tears into making an impact. So that's super cool. What have been some of your big milestones so far?
So, I mean, Techstars, huge milestone for us. I mean, that really did bring us together and galvanize the idea and build up a bit of momentum, which is phenomenal.
So can I actually put you off there? What was going on before Techstars that you're building? Obviously, you started working on this product solution. What was going on, and what made you decide to apply and ultimately join the program?
So we were like building up our solution, speaking to more and more people, really working closely with some amazing users. And I think like sort of one of the big motivating factors for me and the team is the fact that we kind of have fallen in love with the problem and the users that are feeling that problem and getting that feedback loop. So we were constantly working with them, weekly meetings, all the stuff that thankfully, everyone recommends, and we were doing it, which is great. Here's that pain, let's try and solve it. You get that feedback loop, you go, excellent, let's keep building and fixing that problem. It's been amazing in that sense. So we're going down that path, but what we realized is that sort of you can do it in isolation as a little cohort team and try and take on the world. But hey, there are people out there and organizations out there that want to be able to help you reach that next step and do it. And the real sense of urgency behind what we're doing, what we feel that the mission we're trying to accomplish. We don't want this done, in 10 years time. Realistically, if I could wave a magic wand, it would have been done yesterday. So people are getting that help now. And things like Techstars, when they, when you read about them, you hear about them, it's obvious if that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get to the next stage quickly and with the right sets of advice and support. Interesting enough, obviously coming from a medical background, my knowledge of accelerators and stuff like that was really minimal. It's just talking with my co-founders, and they were like, hey, look at this. Oh my God, okay, let's have a real good look into this. And we set the application in kind of like a fingers crossed moment, and went through the first interview, was like, oh wow. Second, going through those processes and then speaking to everyone in the big panel interview at the end was just, you kind of realize the impact and how excited you get, and you go, well, no, it's not a big deal. It won't affect things in the long run. It doesn't affect things in the long run if you don't get it, but if you do and you can progress yourself with that cohort of people around you, I mean, just the people we're working with around us now, it's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good story. I'm really happy that you and your team were able to commit to a program, commit to the London Accelerator. That's awesome. So congratulations. So yeah, you can, jump back in where you were before about some of the milestones that your team has seen. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think it's important for the audience to hear, what does a startup's sort of environment look like prior to joining a Techstars or really any accelerator program? Like, what's the rationale behind that decision? Because a lot of people sort of struggle with the, is it worth it? How much value am I going to get out of it? Is it going to turn out in the long run? And so it's always important to hear the state that people's companies are in prior to getting in the program. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and, massive shout out to the London Techstars team. Like, they are incredible. Kind of, I guess the comparison is kind of like, we were little itty bitty kiddies sort of coming into the world, and they're like, they don't support you. They take you through it and make you realize where your strengths are, when you need to work on yourself as well as your business. And it is that process of making it into a proper business. So like the team here is phenomenal. And we got lucky. We had the great opportunity to go to FounderCon, which is where we met, which was great. And sort of realized that, hey, whilst it's amazing when you're in London, you actually are part of this sort of massive network of people that are actually really happy when you just pop your hand out and you go, hi, I'm Ciaran. They go, amazing, let's chat. You're doing something cool. Let's talk about it. And that enthusiasm, that. So that's the kind of, you realize that, you can grow, and you don't just need to grow as a business when you're beforehand. You can grow into something massive and really can give you that little, I guess, accelerate you towards that, which is the whole point. So
yeah, it's called an accelerator for a reason, I guess.
Yeah.
You just mentioned that when you were getting into program, it forced you to look at what your strengths and weaknesses were. Do you mind sharing what some of those strengths were, and then also the weaknesses, and why you felt like Techstars would be a good facet for you to be able to improve upon those weaknesses, and also just continue building out those strengths?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a first-time founder, but I'm really lucky to work. My two co-founders both have worked in startups and scale-ups and stuff like that, so I had a little bit of like a insight into that world. And that they've been amazing at grounding me. But it's kind of like having that was a strength. But when you realize when it's turned up to like 11 in terms of got mentors to be able to speak to, like 2 weeks of mentor magic, constantly speaking to people that have gone and done this, the thing you're dreaming of, they've got it done. So you can kind of get this real clear insight. And whilst we had strengths in the team and we had what we feel is obviously a really strong idea and a mission, so that's really what's great. We've got a problem we're trying to solve, and that was our strengths. But what sort of we realized and what Techstars can bring is the network, but also the sort of laser focus. You've got to be really, really focused on what problem is solved and how you're going to go about doing that. It's not a never-ending runway. There's a time scale on these things. Everyone's got that point, and that's what we saw Techstars as being able to really unlock, and that's what it's doing. The decision within a week, progress you make in your thinking alone, it's phenomenal. So, strengths, I love the team. We have a great team. We've got a great mission, a great leaders, which is always like, those people are the ones where they're ultimately here to serve. But we have weaknesses. We're three guys that are really trying to push something into the world, and the world pushes back really, really hard. Got to understand the business model side of it. You've got to understand how to get it out there at a marketing point of view. You've got to understand how to scale and build things that scale. Otherwise, you're never going to survive. And that's one of the things we saw Techstars being able to do for other companies. I mean, you just have to look through the portfolio to be able to spot that they're there and designed for scale, really. Which is, you want to make it, you've got to go for scale, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it doesn't surprise me that you're so high on your team, because as Techstars likes to say, the first three things that we look for in a potential portfolio company is team, team, team. So the fact that you're mentioning your team as being potentially your biggest strength, that totally doesn't surprise me, and it adds up. And I like that you point out some of those weaknesses, especially with the focus aspect of things. I think as a first-time founder, it can probably get pretty hard to narrow down that focus into one mission. And in speaking with other founders, I've learned that that's potentially one of the most difficult things, is having one mission and sticking to solving the problem within that one mission every time that you approach like any context of your business. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you've coped with being a first-time founder? Like, what are some of the strategies and coping mechanisms that you've used to handle the stress, handle the issues with focusing, really any issues that you've had being a first-time founder? How have you overcame
that? Yeah, great question. So I think overcoming, I'll definitely put it as
working through. How do you work through the issues being a first time?
And I think it's active. You've got to work actively. So there's definite parallels, and I think this is where sort of my previous background as being a doctor, it does translate in so many ways. So like stress and pressure is like the entrepreneur's sort of thing. The emergency kind of lives that life. Do you know what I mean? So there's that parallel between the two, which is really great. So I'm happy. I actually realized in my life that I thrive by working on really stressful things all of the time. I enjoy that. That's kind of what gets me out of bed. But there's a level of like, one of the things that I really struggled with is you're trained in healthcare to be really analytical and like be like, no, you must know that this is going to be the right thing, because people die if you don't do the right thing, and it's not a maybe or. It's like people get hurt, people die if you do the wrong thing. So you have to have good evidence behind what you're doing. Whereas in you've got to be able to try and break things, even the concept to begin with of like A/B testing. Put this out there, and just speak to people and go, well, that was a job to the system as a first-time founder coming from healthcare. But I think it's one of those things that it'll hold any healthcare professional back doing entrepreneurship if they don't get that that sort of chip off their shoulder. I was really lucky. I had two people that were super patient with me, were willing to be, kind and fair, but also firm, and go like, nah, line in the sand now, get over it. You've got to work on this aspect of yourself and that aspect, and having that. And then textiles kind of like, really digs into that as well. You've got to identify where your weaknesses are. And that's what I think is super important from a first time founder point of view. If you're coming in and you sort of come in with that level of ego, you're going to get checked really quickly, I think is one of the realizing. Healthcare definitely is dominated by big personalities and perhaps a bit of ego as well. I say perhaps, definitely. But it's over the course of time, I think you've got to be patient with yourself. If you're not patient with yourself, if you expect things really, really immediate, your mental health will take an absolute beating. And like anything, you've got to work on that as much as the business, because if you're not functioning, it's not functioning. And ultimately it's down to you. So working on that aspect of your sort of mental well-being, continually working through that, I was always able to take, leave. I could always go on annual leave, take a break, go on holiday with my partner, and that would reset me. Whereas even now, if I go away for, a dinner, I'm still thinking about work. So if you're not fine-tuning that aspect of your mental health as a founder of any stage, is what I've heard, but definitely from my point of view as a first-time founder, you're going to burn out, and it's going to go. And I think if you let it slip, it'll catch up with you. So I would definitely say that big change.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of great points just there. The aspect of ego, I think, is huge within entrepreneurship as well as the healthcare industry. I think also the aspect of mental health is a theme across both industries too. So yeah, those are two huge challenges. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about mental health, because it seems that it's something that you try to prioritize, or at least very passionate about. So yeah, I would just love to hear your thoughts and opinions on, mental health within these two industries, and why you think it's become such a problem. Like why do you think healthcare and entrepreneurship are places where, within healthcare, I know that suicide rates are some of the highest amongst any profession. I know in entrepreneurship, mental health and addiction are both extremely rampant. So, I don't want to say extremely rampant. I want to say they're prevalent. What are the issues? Why are people suffering from these, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, really multifactorial, complicated set of factors that lead into having those things. But that perhaps is my clinical side coming out, being like, there's lots of reasons why these things.
I'm just the analytical side of things, and I get the sort of big picture side of things here.
Yeah, I mean, so within mental health, within healthcare, you're 100% right. Huge sort of outstripping of the average population. I've had colleagues that have, ended their life, and it's horrible. I mean, it's a high pressure job, and you're trying to do something that makes an impact. And when you get that invested in something, it really can take a toll on you. And I think that's the reflection with entrepreneurship. I think that's why there is an overlap between the two for me. Entrepreneurship is stressful. There are more lows than there are highs. That to me when I first started out doing this journey, and wow, that is true. Whereas at least within healthcare, I could, be like, oh, that patient was nice to me today, or I did that good thing today, something along those lines. But I think it's because realistically, you're trying to make an impact. You're trying to impact, not just your immediate family and loved ones, but you're trying to impact something bigger and contribute towards that. And I think that's where you're kind of willingly, whether sort of, I guess, knowingly or unknowingly, I'm not sure, but you're putting yourself in that position to be hurt because you are willing to give 110% of you. And I think that's the type of person that it attracts. There's a small cohort of people that can do entrepreneurship or can, go through it. The cohort of people that can do healthcare, and not everyone can. And I think it's important to be able to identify if you can or can't, but how to be able to try and make yourself be able to, taking the time away, spending time with your loved ones, all of the basic things. We were talking today, actually, there's a really great thing that they do on the program here. I don't know if they do it elsewhere, but they do sort of forums where we all get together and just chat and sort of share experiences. Today's forum for an hour, we spoke about how are we coping? How's our mental health doing? It's a big, scary world out there. How are we going to cope? It's not pretending like, we can fix it. It's not something you can ever fix. It's something you have to work on. You don't go to the gym once and hope you get your 6-pack. You've got to go every day. You've got to adjust your diet. You've got to exercise. And all of these things are the same way for mental health. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. And it's also great that speaking to different textiles companies at FounderCon, and we've got some here in London as well that are working on those things. It's amazing to be around people trying to tackle those sort of problems. So it's really inspirational on that.
Yeah, there's a certain level of vulnerability and sacrifice that you need to have, I think, within both domains.
Yeah, definitely.
So what sort of sacrifices do you feel like you've had to make within both as a doctor and as an entrepreneur? Where are you giving things up so that you can make that ultimate impact and, find success?
Again, big overlap. Time with loved ones. That's the biggest thing. My partner, we've been together 9 years. If I went through this and asked that question and didn't give her a shout out, it would be mind blowing. She's waited, 6 months while I've gone missing to study or gone into sort of our equivalent of residency and stuff like that. She's, been patient when I'm down, when I'm burnt. And through this process, textiles, you don't get many hours off. Just, we'll be realistic. This is a lot of work. But it's to serve a purpose and an impact in it. And it's to serve an impact on those that you love and make sure that those that you love are coming with you on that journey. It's a super important thing. So that's the biggest sacrifice. It's like, I'd love to spend more time with her. I would love to spend more time with my mum and dad. I'm really lucky that they're still, here, but I don't get to go visit and travel and see them as much. And I can't just go and spend 2-3 days catching up, even calling them. At the end of the day, you spent all day on the phone trying to, go through sales calls or whatever it is. Another conversation on the phone where you just want to sit there and just space out. It's tough. I'm super fortunate in the sense that that one of my co-founders is my brother. I haven't mentioned that, had I? But I'm really lucky, and he's been, it's always good talk, relating back to ego. It's always good to have your slightly older brother. He's one and a bit years older than me, but it's always good to have that reality check from somebody that you know and So working with somebody that you really trust helps reduce that sacrifice. But yeah, it's a big thing, and I don't know if he's feeling that as well. He's like, moved home to come into London, and so many of the teams here have, people have moved away from their, children, and I'm, it's incredibly difficult in that sense. Hey, if you want to do something cool, if you want to make an impact, if you want to really do something different, sacrifice is the thing. You can't get away from it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's so interesting that one of your co-founders is your brother, because I was just about to ask what it's like working with your team and what it's like having co-founders and potentially running into conflict with people who you might have been like lifelong friends or partners or peers with. For your situation, one of your co-founders is a family member. So I think you can speak even more directly to it and potentially more honestly and have a little bit more insight. What's that situation like, navigating, co-founder dispute, falling outs that you have every now and then? I'm always so curious about the dynamic between co-founding teams, because it's something that Techstars value so much, and that just, I want to say the economy values a lot. Like the success of a business is having a good team is foundational to the success of the business. But there's no successful business that has not undergone its challenges, its disputes and whatnot. So can you just talk to me about how you navigate the relationship between your co-founders?
Yeah. Anyone that says that disputes don't happen, I don't believe them. I never believe them. I can't possibly imagine a world, because you've got to work with people that care. And I think fundamentally, if you're arguing about something, or you're going, do you know what, I'm done with this meeting, I need to get out of this room, get frustrated and stuff like that. I think the thing that's been really great for us as a three has been that we always recognize that people are annoyed or angry or getting animated because they care about what you're doing. I would be so worried if all of a sudden one of them was just like, don't mind. It's not what you're going for.
Worse. Even in like a friend or a social setting, the question of what do we want to do? Where do we want to go for dinner? What movie do we want to see? The one who's indifferent is always the most problematic one to me.
Yeah. If you want to go and eat some Thai food, you want somebody to say that sometimes. Sometimes
I always want to eat Thai. It's my favorite. It's my favorite cuisine.
There's a connection, Dylan. That's it. That's what we do. But I think that's what like the dynamic. And I mentioned earlier on in this conversation about sort of people having patience with me. I'm very grateful to both of them, but I think that the sort of the lenience that my brother gave me, I was really lucky for. In terms of sort of this is great. I don't know whether he'll be impressed with me telling this story, or maybe he will be. I don't know. But I struggled to begin with calling people to disturb them, because I'm calling who I know are busy professionals, right? These are health workers that they're working hard. Calling them to be able to try and help them use something that we're building that we know is providing value to them when we speak to all the other users. And he was like, you've got to get on the phone. And I was like, I can't. I'm going to disturb them. They're a senior this and that, and they're probably doing this. And he literally called me on the computer and then said, right, take out your phone. I've sent you a number, call it. And forced me to dial it, to call, to speak in. And I was like, oh, you can hang up, don't worry. When I started to call, I was like, I'm calling. He was like, no, you're gonna do this in front of me. Come on, break through. And I think when you work with people that are that willing to put up with your nonsense when it comes to stuff that's so fundamental to the business, that to me is how I feel we've got like a winning formula. Because now I can do the same to him, I can do the same to my other co-founder, and he can do the same to us. And you've got to be able to break things and decide and align. But ultimately you've got to get yourselves into a position where you're all working in the same direction. And if you don't talk, you don't constantly talk, that's going to be a problem, in my opinion. And we've been working on that. And it's kind of like the mental health thing, right? As the business is health, you've got to make sure you're all aligned and working in the same direction. So you've got to work on it day in, day out, talking. Are we working on this? Yeah, cool. Click lines of communication. And at the end of the day, if an argument gets bad, it hasn't yet, mum's always around to sort it out. So we're good.
Yeah, if you got to bring in the matriarch, and it's not the worst case. And maybe it is the worst case. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if that ever happens.
So that's a great point that you bring up about aligning on vision. And I think it would be really helpful for our audience to understand, if you could walk us through a little bit more specifically what that process has been like, because obviously you're in program now. So that's something that you're consistently doing, I'm sure, on a day-to-day basis as you approach the end of the program and the demo day session. Can you just like descriptively maybe walk us through what it's been like aligning on your vision and how you've tackled that problem or continue to tackle it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that has always rung true for us is that we're currently existing to solve a problem that we care about, that we're trying to that impacts a lot of people, and that ultimately we think will result in a phenomenal business. I think the alignment has always been based off of that. We're not taking sort of the classic of like taking a solution and trying to plug it straight into, hopefully that's the problem. That's been great for us in terms of, being our North Star. Hey, does this serve our problem? This is what the problem is, so we can see it. There's a massive issue in terms of how healthcare is functioning at the moment when it comes to sharing and community. That's our problem. Does this solve it? And at times we've come from different approaches, right? Okay, we need to take this angle, that angle, this angle. And because there are so many different ways to solve a problem, right? we've, to begin with, you'd have a meeting and it would be like, okay, well, let's talk for 2 and a bit hours and go over this and that, and unstructured, not great in terms of creativity and bouncing ideas and doing all of that stuff. But what we found that's working really well for us has been the journey to every morning we wake up, we do a quick, what am I working on? What's my blockers? Do I need any help from you guys? Go through that. That's that classic stand-up. And then working through what sort of the tried and tested methods in that way. And that's where, Kunal and Nick, they've been amazing from their previous experience to bring it in and say, hey, we've seen this work really well in companies. But also sort of doing that, check in, this is the right direction, we're going okay on that, yeah, cool. Having it clear, having it written, and then also being really open with each other in terms of when you're having sort of a wobble, a little bit of everyone does it. I haven't met an entrepreneur that doesn't do it. I haven't met anyone in life that doesn't do it, where you go, oh dear, what am I doing with all of this? And being able to have somebody go, no, it's cool. Don't forget, that's our mission. That's our problem that we're working towards. And this is how we're currently trying to solve it. And when we reach this threshold, we've all agreed on, cool, we'll reevaluate, check what we're doing and go again. And I guess the classic advice, again, it's a cliche for a reason, but, be willing to change, be willing to change your solution. If you're trying to solve a problem, you've got to be willing to be flexible. Not flexible to the point where you throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you've got to be able to really think through, hey, is this the optimum way of doing it? Is this the quickest way? That's, again, Techstars coming in. You've got incredible sort of MDs and the team and stuff like that being like, is that the quickest way? Sure. Prove it to me. If you can't prove it to me, can you prove it to yourself? Those sort of questions. And that's how it's really aligned. Sometimes just go for a beer, sit down and have a beer in the pub, and then you say no work whatsoever. And then 30 minutes later, you're like, oh, that's amazing. We're all now completely aligned. So sometimes changing context helps.
So what would you say has been the biggest impact that Techstars and the program has had on you and your team?
So streamlining the alignment, I think, just following on from that, the simple question, prove it.
And what about like working with the cohort, like the other teams around you? What's that experience been like? Because I know that when we first spoke, you mentioned, being a founder is lonely, and every founder I've ever met has said that to me. And so Techstars gives you this opportunity to try and limit that loneliness as much as possible by surrounding you with a bunch of other ambitious people and mentors and managing directors. How has that gone?
Amazing. It's a huge facet of it. And the really wonderful thing is that we can still see the previous cohorts meeting in the office, and they're still working, some of them in the office, and then they'll have meetups, or they have regular, Google Meets or whatever it is, to be able to keep in touch, and they still have the same shared Slack channel, and they're chatting with each other and engaging with each other. So it's great to be able to see the longevity of the connection you're making with the people now, and the connection is amazing. See a group of people that are cut from the same cloth as you, they want to do something that's a big deal, and they're working. Everyone in the cohort is an incredibly hard worker. There's some incredibly hardworking healthcare staff, but to a person, they are working constantly to be able to achieve their goal and their mission. And they're doing cool things. I mean, lots of my friends are doctors and nurses, and I didn't get to meet lots of other people go through medical school outside of that cohort. It kind of selects itself down. But, learning about, IoT, learning about AI, learning about sort of e-commerce stuff, it's incredible from my point of view to see all of these opportunities and the sort of breadth of the world and the solutions that people are trying to implement. It's great. Really, really cool. And that they're also good fun. It's nice, we go out, have a dinner, go out, have a drink. I think next week we're going to go play mini golf all together. Great.
Nice.
Got it, right? You got to go do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to keep it fun for sure. So tell me where you see MedTribe being 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road.
So I guess sort of when I sit there and I go, this would be amazing, or that it's connected together the global healthcare workforce, not selecting down the physician, nurse. That this is a team. The team's been neglected, and I want that to be the main thing that's happening, that knowledge is being communicated with minimal friction, that people are innovating and iterating on that knowledge rather than just trying to access it. That to me has been such a frustration throughout my career. And that people ultimately are able to take agency as those healthcare professionals to present themselves to the world, to get a new job that they really, really hope for, to find that research opportunity, and to connect, to exist within a community, to realize that they're, hey, maybe within my tiny geographically constrained circle, nobody's going through what I'm going through or trying to fix a problem that I'm trying to solve, but that there is a wider community, and that there is a space for them to exist. So my hope is that, wave a magic wand, every healthcare professional has a tool to be able to help them do that, and that MedTribe's that space to be able to do it. That's what we're aiming for.
Mm-hmm. Fingers crossed.
Connection, that's the thing. We've spoken so much about Techstars, and I keep coming back to how incredible the connectivity, that the sort of that element of it is, and that's what we're trying to achieve. Connect through their education, connect through their community, connect through their careers and the career opportunities that come from it. That's what we're going.
Sounds amazing.
Because ultimately, that's how you make impact, right? It changes my, hey, I'm impacting one patient to maybe a doctor in Australia is able to communicate stuff with a doctor in Sudan, and they're able to change that and impact that group of patients' care. Because that's what the health professionals are there for. They spend their entire lives gathering knowledge inside their head to be able to affect people positively. The more that you break down the silos and the barriers around that knowledge and those opportunities to learn and to behave together, then the patients ultimately get the benefit.
Mm-hmm. I hope that you guys get there, because obviously I've mentioned to you, but I have a partner that's within the healthcare industry. She's in medical school right now. Both her parents are doctors as well. Her brother's a doctor. And I can see where there needs to be some solutions created. So I think that y'all are doing a great thing, and I'm just really excited to see how it develops over the next, year, 2 years, 5 years. I think that you're going to be around for a while, and I'm excited to see it grow.
That's really kind of you. I mean, that's the aim, is to be able to help your partner, be able to go into the medical world as a physician and be able to affect change, not just on the local level, but, spread that word, make sure that, she feels that they're able to continually, you're able to stay in the profession. It's actually an incredible career.
They've got to have a support system and a network of people outside of just those surrounding you. Would be amazing as well.
Yeah, and it's going to take more than just MedTribe. MedTribe, we're going after this aspect of the problem. Mm-hmm. But as we said at the very beginning of this conversation, this problem's massive, and it has multiple facets that need addressing. And what's more important than health and well-being in that way?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well, thanks, Ciaran, for coming in. I really appreciated this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been really good fun.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more stories from the Techstars Network, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our other social media. If you're a founder looking to 10x your startup, do not hesitate to visit our website to apply to a program today. And most importantly, always remember, give first.